So are you willing to step back and let the kids step up?
You looking at me?
Yeah, you.
Funny plug. I think I might be the only person on this panel that is under 30 because I'm 28.
Well, now I feel really old.
No, yeah, I mean, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's important to actually take a step back and let young folks take a lead, but also provide encouragement. I mean, some of the best conversations that I've had with young people was me talking to them like I would talk to any of y'all. I'm not patronizing, and I'm actually interested in figuring out, like, what is the issue that they're interested in? Somebody raised their hand. I was just talking to somebody earlier today, but they said that they have these peace groups that they organize in the school. Raise your hand to be recognized, or there you go. Yeah, and she said the most important thing that I do when it comes to organizing. It's about opening up space for them to give their own ideas, their own fresh perspectives, and even create options. Like today we want to just talk about environmental justice. What do you know? What don't you know? And just say, here's what we think from our perspective, and be able to get that feedback and connect it to the issues, because young people were just trying to learn and trying to figure it out. But I've never seen a conversation go well where someone feels like that they know everything and they want people to be a part of their movement, and they're saying, you need to join this is important, and if you don't join it, you're going to hell. I've never seen that really work out for anybody. However, being able to talk and be inviting and creating open space, but also giving that encouragement of pushing people up, because a lot of us, even adults, we get stage fright. So how do you think a young person's going to feel when you're just saying, okay, go speak to 100 people about why you think environmental justice is important?
Right.
It's just good to offer that perspective. And actually, we have another person in here who is a young person in here who's 13 years old from the Bay Area who just got involved, from my understanding, because she was there. I swear she's real, but she's not.
She's here.
You'll see her during lunch, but she got involved just because she simply cared. Nobody encouraged her. Nobody told her to do anything. She looked at the world around her and said, I'm tired of this and I want to do something about it. So identify for the young people in your community, what does environmental justice mean to them? What are the issues that they're facing and how do they want to work? And they'll start to weave in and figure out that all the issues we're working on are connected. And one last thing I'll leave you with is, during the summer, there's this school called Leadership in Richmond. They do these little tours to show the different work that's happening in Richmond. And one of the tours is taking a tour of the Chevron refinery. And oh, do these kids grill the Chevron refinery tourists. They ask, what is that cloud coming out of the refinery? Oh, that's just steam. Oh, steam. So it's not pollution or anything like that. Well, you know, we got to do this. Oh, and what about all the flaring that happens? Oh, it's important that we do flaring. Why? Well, so the refinery doesn't blow up. Oh, that's concerning. And also, why did you spend over $3 million to buy up a local election? Well, if people are coming after your business, you're going to want to do everything you can to protect it too.
Right.
These young people, grill them. They're smart. They're knowledgeable. You just got to give them that platform and just fill in the missing blanks of information so they can grow into a stronger leader and be able to pass that information on to the next generation. But give them the open platform. Don't be patronizing. Treat them like adults that are just learning a new issue for the first time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jessica, should we be helping our young friends go on strike every Friday? And should those climate strikes spread to become general strikes?
You know, one thing that I want to just really emphasize is they didn't wait for us to take a step back. They took 10 steps forward.
Right on.
And took the stage, and I really appreciate that of our young folks. I'm somewhere in the middle. I got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. But one of the things that I note is that when youth are tasked with these issues and imagining them in positions of power, they don't have the corporate manipulation that a lot of us adults do. And so they apply very basic logic to problem solving. And it's like one of the most beautiful things to see that. I just remember, because I've also done work in some indigenous communities, and I was asking folks in the room what health meant to them. And there was a little girl who's about 6, 7 years old, and she said happiness was health to her. And everybody in the room got so quiet and was like, because our definition was so complicated. But when it came to this child, she broke it down with one simple word, right? So that's just an example of how connected they are and how disconnected we are, and how we need to learn from them, right? Another thing that I feel like I note all the time is how brand new their brains are, and so how much more efficient they are at using it, where I feel like I'm taking a long time to grasp, and break down the language when I hear people use terms like distributed energy resources. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Why don't we just call it local clean energy? I understand that, and so does everybody else in the room. So
Consultants can't get paid for that.
yeah, exactly.
Branding.
Branding, exactly. Clean power to the people. That's what I'm working for. And one of the things that I think that the youth really emphasize and remind us of is that they're inheriting everything. The mess that we created, but they're also inheriting the cleanup, right? And so they're running away with these tools. We've been talking about community choice energy as a solution to all these issues of pollution, with clean energy and creating jobs, and improving health and safety and making things more affordable and more just at home. And when they're addressing issues, problems in the community, using that as we're fighting this no coal terminal in Oakland, but this is what we want, instead of locking us into the next generation or more of dirty energy. So, like I said, I don't feel like I even need to take a step back, man. They're so ahead of us and so focused, and I'm just very humbled by it. Very, very so much moved. But, we have access to things that they don't necessarily, right? Including voting, right? So giving them the tools that they need to run with, and they run with it. So yeah, I appreciate the folks like youth. I think they're called Youth Against the Apocalypse in the Bay Area, and those were some of the folks that were addressing Feinstein in that video. Youth versus the apocalypse. I mean, the name alone, like when they organize though, and we have to take a lesson because we can get really boring when we talk about these issues. When they talk about it, it's spoken word, it's artistic, it's interesting, it's fun. Some of us need to go back to that, right? To go back to being a kid and being uninhibited and nap time. I want nap time. As an organizer, I need nap time.
Comes right after lunch. Let me give you a shot at this, Benjamin. How are you working with kids or empowering younger people to be part of this?
Sure. Well, first I'll say that, I reflect on my own experience. When I was younger, right after I graduated from high school, I got to know some folks who were older than me. And instead of them saying, "Oh, you want to be part of changing the world? Come work for me. I've got a project you can be a part of." It was, "Well, what do you want to do? And how can I support that? How can I help you make that possible?" So I was very fortunate to have that experience. And so I think we all need to try to replicate that model. At our organization specifically, for a long time. We continue to do it. We work with the local colleges, and we bring in interns every single semester, every single quarter. And we, a good internship program done right is not go get coffee or just do this menial task. It should actually cost you and your organization something. You should be taking the time and the energy to teach these people, to give them space to do what they can do. You should get less out of it in a certain sense, right? It's totally the wrong model to think of an internship as like free, cheap labor. It should actually cost your organization something, but the value that we will all get from it is immeasurable. I also think that it is about, I think Melvin used this term and others as well, it's about creating space. And that's actually an active process. It's not necessarily stepping aside. It's not youth and us, right? Creating space is an active thing that you do, and it in this political world, it takes energy, right? Creating space means holding back the powers that are trying to fight against us, creating reinforcement, providing support. So it's not a let me step aside, it's let's work together, but let me create this space for you to lead. Sunrise and Justice Democrats, they were founded by people about our age, right? It's not that they're completely absent from those organizations and not part of that movement. They're working together and they're creating space for young people to lead. So we're trying to do that at our organization, and I encourage everybody, if you're part of an organization, a business, whatever it is, create that space. It's worth it for sure.
Thanks. So, as you can tell, we're only scratching the surface here. We could spend this entire convention talking about nothing but what the Green New Deal is or should be or shouldn't be. But right now, I think we've, as a panel, used up most of our time. We want to give folks in the audience a chance to ask some questions.
There's a big focus on reducing our fossil fuel use, but we need to sequester carbon, pull it out of the air where it's a pollutant, and fix it in the soil to build a life in the soil, which also makes the soil so that the water sinks in instead of running off. And so we have the technology to do that, and it's called a tree. And so,
What is this tree you speak of?
I'm here hyping Mother Nature. Yeah. So really strongly encourage everybody to get the carbon sequestration part. And my verbiage for that is we want to promote regenerative organic farming. And
I think there's a lot of support for exactly what you're speaking about in this room.
Another component of that is putting people to work. And one of the interesting initiatives along that line is the ecosystem restoration camps idea. It's proposed by John Liu, and encourage people to look into that. So any comments from the panel?
Benjamin.
Sure. So this is actually, carbon sequestration is something that our organization has started to really look into. And we're pursuing some opportunities to work with rangeland owners, ranchers. So there's this interesting problem right now in California in that we've passed this law that says organic waste can no longer go to the landfill where it just sits and generates all this methane, right? We've got to do something with it. There are also recent experiments that show that if you take that and you turn it into compost and you spread it about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch across rangeland, you can actually sequester an incredible amount of carbon. So we can solve this problem of organic waste going to the landfill with a solution that can actually begin to sequester carbon, help our state meet its carbon overall carbon goals. This is, I think, a perfect example of the type of policy that could make it into a Green New Deal at the statewide level. We haven't finished our research on it, but I can tell you that in California we have so much open rangeland of a particular type where these practices could be implemented that there's, in theory, the potential that doing this across all available rangeland, we could reduce our carbon footprint by 20%, which would be about the equivalent of taking every car off the road. We could be creating a lot of jobs in the process. So it's an interesting area, and I'm sure that we're going to be hearing a lot more about it coming soon. In fact, I've heard rumors that there's a bill being floated around in Sacramento about carbon sequestration in the ocean, planting large kelp, basically farms, so that carbon can be and taken to the bottom of the ocean, which we believe at the moment is one of the most durable places to store it.
Okay, my name is Mary Shaw-Coran. I'm from Monterey, San Benito area, and I worked on the anti-fracking initiatives there. Would you support a coalition of progressive environmentalists, labor, others who would
All right, I think we get that.
I want to support something
package.
better than that, in fact.
What's that?
But I think the issue of why we're not taking this, whether it's the local Green New Deal resolutions or how it manifests at the local level, or whether it's banning fracking, or whether it's not using any more nuclear, is because of the money in politics.
Exactly.
Until we elect people that are going to have and hold those values in our communities, whether it's local, at the state level, or nationally, you're going to be asking this question every year you come here.
Well,
And until we all work together to
Right.
figure that out. So because what you're proposing is wonderful. It helps us, it makes us feel good. Yes, we need to work together, absolutely. But the underlying forces here is that the fossil fuel has so much money and so much access and so much reach that they keep electing people that don't have the
I agree
fill in
with
the
you.
blanks.
That's why I'm
And-
suggesting the initiative, because when we did our initiative, the fossil fuel industry spent $5.6 million in Monterey County, 2.1 million in San Bernardino,
All
over
right.
here in this county.
We're going to have to move
So
on.
I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
saying,
We've got a
why
line
not
of folks behind you.
entertain a, go
And
beyond.
I think we can all agree with you that I can't speak obviously for the group. I think the group here has a methodology on how you make decisions. But I just want to be clear, folks, all of us, that unless we really take this political process seriously, and unless we start taking our own people to run for office and supporting them, and unless we hold them accountable when they get elected for office, we're going to be asking these questions, and we're going to be having these meetings, and we're going to have, continue working together and getting nowhere.
All right.
My name is Andy Shaw Coron. A follow-up to her question. You just mentioned that the oil companies have all the money in the world. In both those two initiatives in San Benito and Monterey County, we were outspent 18-1 by the oil industry and prevailed anyway. So I have my doubts about the issue, and I've long had my doubts about the issue about whether big money actually buys elections or not. The point for California right now is that when you talk about the Green New Deal, the original New Deal was essentially pioneered in New York State at the state level, and then it was able to translate into the national level when Franklin Delano Roosevelt went on. We have in California supermajorities in both houses, a Democratic governor, and the strategy should be how do we actually make significant achievements in California, like a ban on all oil, new oil.
Let's
I
ask
mean,
this
don't you think that
gentleman
would be a good answer? A
to
good
answer
question?
that question.
Okay, forgive me if I talk vastly on this. There's just a lot of information I need to fit in on this. So just switching from the Green New Deal and just talking about the housing crisis. Last year in 2017, on the wake that a bunch of rent control and housing measures got passed, a statewide coalition with 70 groups from labor, faith-based, political organizations all across California came together to create the Coalition Housing Now to talk about state policies that were exacerbating the housing crisis. One of those policies is Costa-Hawkins that puts major limitations on rent control. This coalition came together, raised about $46 million to gather signatures within 3.5 months to put the repeal of Costa-Hawkins on the ballot. We were outspent by the major investors by about $74 million to kill this. However, the fact that we had this coalition come together and the fact that the narrative of an affordable housing crisis is still alive right now, there's a bunch of bills that are going through the statewide rent stabilization, statewide just cause for eviction, and a reform of Costa-Hawkins that would significantly strengthen rent control, and that's because we had that coalition and started that narrative. So even if we get beat down by money, it is up to us to be relentless and resist until we get to the goals that we need to get to.
All right, I have.
My state assembly member, I spoke to her privately after a town hall about PG&E being bankrupt, and she said she kind of agrees with me. I was saying, why doesn't the state take over PG&E? Why doesn't they start updating the microgrid and making it for renewables on a massive scale? I mean, these wildfires are costing us billions of dollars.
So
You
is
know-
your question, why doesn't the state
Yes,
take over
yes, it would
PG&E?
be monetarily more efficient, yes.
Well, let's let Jessica give that a shot.
So going back to root problems, the problem right now is the California Public Utilities Commission. I'm going to tell you why. Because they approved a bailout for PG&E. And let me just remind people, it's not bankruptcy like we're going out of business. It's bankruptcy protection to not have to pay the victims of the wildfires for the life that they destroyed and the property that they destroyed in that wildfire. Okay, the second thing is the CPUC has also approved a tax on community choice energy at the statewide level. One of them being the power charge indifference adjustment, the PCIA, or the exit fee that is charged to all community choice programs. So we have to pay this indefinite, ongoing fee. It doesn't ratchet down. It doesn't disappear. There's no transparency on the calculation of that fee. All we hear from PG&E is that we've bought all these contracts and somebody has to pay for it, and you're leaving us, so you have to pay. That's the argument. And the California Public Utilities Commission allows them to do this. They are part of the problem. We need to get rid of Michael Picker. We need to elect commissioners, and we need to be on that commission. And until that happens, this shit is never going to change. So real quick, there is a website. It's California Alliance for Community Energy, CA, communityenergy.org. We have a petition there to address that very issue. So please check out that website, because I don't have a lot of time. Thank you.
Okay.
It's CA for California, communityenergy.org.
All right. What a passionate panel discussion. Let's give a round of applause.